We finished at here on Tuesday, so the pipeline editor. So this was, I make it a bit larger. So this is where we finished on Tuesday of pipeline editor, and we were doing some checks. Like you saw the green tick means that all the test has been passed because of a continuous integration. So can any of you remind me what is continuous integration or your understanding of continuous integration? Yep. Yep. Yep.
Here's some automated tasks that run every time you upload something.
So make sure everything passed the test.
Here's some automated tasks which run every time you upload something.
Automates the test whenever we merge anything in. Yep, so automate that, right? Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's right. So this is the core of continuous integration. Sometimes when we mention continuous integration, we also refer to a larger scope. So it means that so continuous integration sometimes also referring to a good Git practice that we push often, we merge often, and get feedback on about either like whether our code passed the test or not. Yeah, question.
What does integration mean here? It's like the same as like in math integration.
So continuous integration here is a term together, so we cannot separate them. So it's called continuous integration.
Yeah.
So it's a term together.
Yeah, what does it mean?
So continuous integration, so there are like two different ways of interpreting continuous integration. So sometimes in a broader sense, we refer to continuous integration of like a good Git practice. Means that we push our code often, like frequently and regularly.
Often.
Yeah, push often. Yeah, and like more specifically, like when we talk about continuous integration, we also mean like we have automated test. Whenever we triggered it, like with a push or a new commit, right? So.
Each time we push a new commit.
So whenever there's a new commit, either it's because of whenever we have a new commit, either because it's a push or it's because of a merge. Like whenever there's a new commit on our public repo, it will trigger an automated test. Yeah, so this is continuous integration. And there are like a couple of continuous integration tools or services we call it. So the one that we use in this course, so it's a tool from GitLab. So we use the tool from GitLab. And the way that we use the tool is by setting up a file called gitlab-ci.yaml file. And in this file, there are a couple of keywords. So first of all, image. So we didn't have image in our example, and it works perfectly well. So what image does is tell the runner. So we mentioned what runner is in last lecture, right? Runner is the remote machine that runs all of the auto tests for us. So we do not run those auto tests on our machine. We run those auto tests on a runner. So the runner is basically a remote machine. And the image will tell the runner like which Docker container to use to run the job in. So it's maybe complex for you, like what is Docker, what is container, so what is everything. So you do not need to, so you only need to know like image tell the runner where to run the job in, and we set it for you. Like in this course, like when you saw, like you will not see continuous integration in your iteration 1. Right? You haven't seen that yet. So in iteration 2, you will start to see it like continuous integration. And we set it up for you, like the image we use is COMP1531. So we have a runner on AWS, like for 1531. And we also saw some questions on the forum, like asking why I follow the lecture and set up my YAML file, like a CA YAML file. And the runner is always pending, like why the runner was stuck. Because you will need to practice under COMP1531 URL. So you can practice other things like under your own GitLab repo, but you may figure out that you do not have a runner. You need to pay for the runner, but 1531 pays that for you. So if you want to play or practice like using continuous integration, you need to make sure that your repo is under 1531.
Why
Yeah.
we need to make sure that what is the reason?
So runner is an additional service that you need to pay to use that, so that you can trigger that auto test. You need to pay yourself if you want to use it. But 1531, like CSE UNSW, has already paid for you for 1531. So if you want to practice using runner, you can either practice within your labs. So from lab 04, the two labs, like lab 04, there are two, and you can practice during those two labs for the continuous integration.
When we use the JavaScript, we need to use special runner.
No, the runner is for continuous integration. So runner is a remote machine to run the auto tests for continuous integration.
It writes all test for you.
Sorry?
It writes all test for you.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Whenever
right.
I write in the program or
Cool. So there are also a couple of other keywords that can be useful. The other one is called image. So we have seen image in the last lecture. Stages here. So there are some default stage that we do not need to define. For example, deploy or test. But we can also define our own stage. So what is stage? So under here in the build on GitLab, you can see here we have a pipeline. So we mentioned last week pipeline include the jobs that we want the runner or the auto test to do. So the pipeline are basically the jobs. So this is one that we practiced. Yeah. So these are the stage. So this stage only have one task called testing. So this is because we only had testing as in this stage. So we only had the testing in the checks. So we only have one stage. But we can also add more stage, and I will explain how like the different stages or the different jobs run, like whether they are in sequential or whether they are in parallel. So let's have an example first, and I will explain more. So we can also have other stages. So for example, this one, and let's copy and paste that. And this is in the test stage. Let's call it check. Use different names. And this is test. And we only run echo hello everyone here. Okay, so this is the pipeline editor. So sometimes you will find this pipeline editor on GitLab quite useful, that you do not need to open your own editor on VS Code and then add, commit, and push to edit this pipeline. So you can just use the pipeline editor offered by GitLab directly. So you can think of it like any normal editor. Yep, and then you can commit that change. You can also add a commit message here on this GitLab pipeline editor. And you can see that it's checking pipeline status. It also helps you check whether your pipeline syntax is correct. So this is also another powerful feature offered by GitLab. So we mentioned like for YAML file, it has quite strict syntax for the indentations. So if you have like wrong or not proper syntax, GitLab will also figure that out for you. So we can click on this click. You can see that now we have two stages here. So originally we only have one stage with one job. So now we have two stages, which are checks and test, and each include a task in that. Okay. Yep. So we can also add more tasks in each stage. So we can go back to our pipeline editor. So what about we add another one to test? So this we call it test 1. It's also in this test stage. hello COMP1531. Okay, and pipeline syntax is correct, good. And we commit that change. You see that it triggered this auto test directly. So it's automated. So whenever we make new commits on this remote repo, it will trigger this auto test for us. And the auto test is running now. Okay, so you can see this one has already done, and the second stage of test is running now. So you can see that the different stages is running in sequential. So when the first stage, so all the tests in the first stage done, then it will turn to the next stage. So it will finish all the jobs in check first, and then move on to tests. And the two tests, like test one and test in this test stage, they run in parallel if the runner is available. So whenever the runner is available, the tests in this, the jobs in one stage runs in parallel. Okay, so different stage, they run in sequential, but the tasks, the jobs in one stage, they run in parallel if the runner is available. Okay, some other useful thing that we can do is, what else? What can you think of? Like, so another thing is, remember that when we push to the remote repo, we do not push the node model folder. Right, we want to save the space on our server, and we also do not want to push too much redundant code. So how will the runner run the test for us if they do not have all the node.modules folder? So how can they run that? So actually the runner, like the remote machine, they actually need to install all the dependencies to run the tests. Yeah, question? Sorry? Well, they need to read our package.json file to know what are the dependencies. And for different programs, different softwares, they have different dependencies. So they need to install those dependencies and then to be able to run the test for us. So just one thing that is useful is called before script. And the thing we do is called npm I or npm install. So before all the stages, like before all the scripts, npm install all the dependencies, and then run the tests. Follow that. Make sense? Yep. To be able to run all the tests, they need to have the dependencies. Like the remote machine, they need to have their dependencies. Okay. Yep. I think that is all for now. Cool. Any question online? Hello. Cool. Yep. Okay. So one more keyword here is called only. So what is only? Only controls when to add jobs to a pipeline based on the branch name or the pipeline types. Okay. So before we explain anything further, let's see an example. What about we add for is this the right one? No, this is the right one. So for this test one, I only wanted to run on the master or the main branch. So whenever there's a new change pushed to merge into master or main, I want to run this test. So I do not want it to run on any branch. I only want it to run when I pushed or merged into master. So the thing tag we use here is called only. So how to use only? Have a guess? How do we use only? It's under this stage, so it's another keyword. So similar to the others, it's called only. And we can say main or master. So here we have main instead of master. Sometimes you see main, but sometimes you see master. So you need to make sure it's consistent. So if we have main here, like we need to have main and only. And then this test one will only be triggered when something is pushed or merged into master. Otherwise, it won't trigger this test one. Yep. All good so far? Yeah, I'm sorry for what I just said. Like, you can interrupt me. So feel free to ask questions. Like, this silence make me a little bit like weird. So, yeah, feel free to ask any questions. Cool. We got some questions from online. How do they know whether or not the test pass or fail? So do you mean how can we know whether the pass or fail? So you can click on here, this tick. Oops. So this means it's passed. Because I did something, so I need to commit that before. So you can see that it's checking this pipeline status, meaning that it's doing the test for us. And then we can check how they are going. So we can click on that. You can see this one is running. So the first auto test is running for us. You can see more details when you click in and running with GitLab runner on COMP1531 AWS, GitLab primary runner, and also they run npm install first, and they added all the packages for us, and then run npm test like what we had. Okay, so this is the test that they run. Okay, and all the details that we had in this in our test, like test.js file, like we had all those tests. So all this passed. So if there's anything fail, we can see the symbol there. The last drop data like equal hello everyone, and the hello everyone is printed here. So this is how we know whether or not the test passed. Cool. So another question from online, to know whether the test pass or fail, I expect that they would need to know what the desired output and everything that produced. How do they know? Because we have written the test for them, so they do not know the test. We write the test for them. So, so this is the test file that we used previously that remove vals. Yep. So we wrote all the tests for the runner. So the runner is, you can think that only a machine. It's another machine sitting somewhere else, like either in CSE building or AWS or other like online cloud servers. We told them what the expected output is. So we had like expect to equal. So we told them what the expected output is, so that they can run all the tests for us and let us know whether the test passed or not. Yep, I hope that clears the question from online.
So it's
Yep.
using YAML file
Mhm.
instead of the C JavaScript test.
Let me show you.
Like a faster way.
So in this repo, this lecture repo, so we have the test file, the JavaScript test file. We also have a YAML file. So what is this YAML file? It tells the runner what to do.
And then write the test file.
Yeah, we need to write the test file. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yep.
Does that mean we make 3 different test files and then run them through the pipeline?
Yep.
Is
Yep.
there anything else you have to do differently? Do you have to call on 3 separate test files?
That's a good question. So remember that in previous lecture when we talk about JS testing, we set up in the package.json file about what we want to test. So here we only test this file. But you can change that. For example, you can have just src, so source file or your source file folder, or you can also have just test folder. So it will run all the tests in your test folder. Yep. So you can define in the JSON, like package.json file, which test you want the runner to run. Yep. Otherwise, all good so far? Yep. Cool. So here are the main keywords that we need to know for the pipeline editor. Yeah, we have already mentioned that. Yeah, so this is very important. So an important rule to follow is that your master branch should always be green. So there always should have that green tick that we have seen here. So your master branch or main branch should always pass the auto test. So you need to write the test first on your main. Okay, so you need to have those tests first before you merge in, or like we cannot push directly into master. But before we merge anything into master or main, we need to already have the test written and also the CI pipeline set up before we merge into the master branch. Yep. Cool. So we also provided some further rating for you, like continuous integration for GitLab specifically, or like more general continuous integration provided by Licenza.